Alex, the brand of football you want to play at this football club seems to need fresh legs, high tempo. How difficult is it for you to get that, given that you've got the amount of injuries you've got and maybe not got the sort of players that you would want to play that?
Listen, I think it's challenging, and the fact we've got a lot of bodies missing. I think a lot of the guys that we have brought in as well have sort of had limited minutes elsewhere. Some of them missed a lot of pre-season for a variety of different reasons, whether it be not getting enough game time in pre-season, being injured in pre-season, coming from other clubs where they maybe weren't sort of part of the plans there. So in that respect, yeah, it's unusual to be 8 games into a season and still sort of chasing fitness for a lot of the lads. So yeah, that's certainly a challenge.
After the Reading game, when Stoke didn't play as well as you would have hoped, or anybody would have hoped, do you now feel that it's a harder job than you thought before? And how's training gone since then?
I think training is gradually getting better day by day. Do you know what I mean? In terms of getting information across to the players, I think getting the fitness levels up to a standard which I'll be happy with, getting players back from injury. I think the biggest thing with the Reading game is we had control of the Reading game. We just looked toothless in the game for me, and that's the bit that was more disappointing. And then in transition, which we knew was going to be how they were going to try and hurt us, we made 2 really, really poor decisions, and it ultimately cost us the match. So I think those type of games get decided on chances, and we had a chance. I think the best chance of the game, arguably for us, falls to Clucas on his left foot. I think if that goes in the net, I think it's a very different game. And at that point, we probably take the points, go home, though we can play better, but are content with what we've done. But unfortunately, we didn't. We got hot in transition, we dive in at the edge of the box and get a penalty away, and it changes the course of the match. So, yeah, there's still huge amounts of scope for us to improve to where we want to get to.
One of the problems seems to be that the crossing isn't as good as you would like. And I know you've talked about the movement of players in the box, but it must be really frustrating for you when Stoke get the crosses in that they're not going to anybody.
I think there's quite a few things. I think the areas that we're crossing the ball from, I think we can try and manipulate the ball a little bit better, getting more dangerous areas. I think the one thing that sort of stood out to me is we don't have a whole host of dribblers that can beat people one-on-one, which for the makeup of a squad, you certainly need players that can get at players and sort of beat them themselves and draw another player across. That's how you can actually create overload. So that in itself is something that we need to try and work on. But as you say, I think there's 2 or 3 different sides to it. The area we're crossing from needs to be better. The quality across when it comes in needs to be better. The movement in the box arguably needs to be better. And if we can get all those factors moving in the right direction, then it gives us more an opportunity to score goals.
You will not have missed out that when Stoke played at Reading, Stoke seemed quite vulnerable on the break because Reading broke very well. Will you think about changing the shape again to a 4, or is that just classified?
I don't necessarily think the 4 makes any difference in terms of the break, because what generally happens if you play a back 4, the full back on the side of the ball will step in, so you end up with 3 defenders behind the ball and a sitting midfield player, which is the exact same if you play a back 3 and a sitting midfield player. So what ends up happening is, although you start in a specific shape, every specific shape's fluent enough to end up, it's basically a numbers game. If they're attacking with 3, you should have 4. If they're attacking with 5, you should have 6. Do you know what I mean? So in that respect, it doesn't really make any difference what your starting formation looks like. It's how you manipulate the numbers in your favour, whether you're attacking or whether you're defending.
When you're new to a club,
Yeah.
you need to find out the character of certain players and how they react to a telling off, or do you need to put an arm around them? Have these unfortunate extra few days of training helped you in that respect?
Not really in the context that you're talking, because when you're talking about how the players react, you normally see their true reaction in game situations. Do you know what I mean? Because training's not got as much riding on it, there's not as much pressure attached to it. And what's happening is when you're training, obviously if we're setting up a sort of drill, the other players know what the drill looks like. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when you're coming up against an opponent, it's your strategy v their strategy and your players versus their players. So, and before it, you don't get given a sort of sheet saying this is what we're planning on doing, just to make you aware. So there's certain things that need to be resolved on the pitch, and I think game situations certainly tell you more about your players than anything else.
On to Hull, who've had a mixed start to the season, lost their last home game against Sheffield United. How do you see this one panning out?
I think Hull are a dangerous team. You know, I think they're quite loose, which makes them dangerous, and the fact that I think they're one of the bottom teams in the league for getting the ball back. I think a lot of teams have had a lot of possession against them, but I think they're dangerous because they've got a goal scorer that's scored 7 and 7, I think, and they've defended well in most of the games that I've seen, and I don't think it's any shame on them that they've lost to Sheffield United, because I think they're one of the best teams in the league for me.
And when you look at this, the way you want to play and the injuries Stoke have got, how difficult and how frustrating is it for you that you can't get players in the positions that you would like them to play in?
Yeah, but listen, I'm not going to. I don't make excuses and stuff in terms of, oh, I haven't got this and we're not this and we're not that, we need to do this. So the fact is, I think everybody understands and knows that it's not been an easy job for anybody over the last 5-6 years. I mean, it's been a difficult job. What I will say is, I think we're arguably in the best position we've been in, probably in the last 5-6 years. You know, I think there's a lot of work going behind the scenes to get us to this point, and hopefully, once we start getting a few bodies back, and even the lads that are available at the moment, we get a few wins under our belt, then momentum's it's a wonderful thing in football. You know what I mean? The mood changes really quite quickly in football, and that goes both ways. So you can have a really good run, and then you lose 3 in the bounce, and all of a sudden it's doom and gloom, and vice versa. You can be going on a really difficult run, and then you go and win a few in the bounce, and then the next minute everybody's talking about getting promoted, and that's just the nature of football. So we want to turn things into a really positive sort of feeling in and around the club, but that all starts with hard work. And
hopefully now you're going to give me some positives on the injury front.
Unfortunately at the moment I'm probably not, no. Nothing's really changed so much in that front.
And Sam Clucas, you thought he had a hamstring problem the other day, is that?
He's still got a hamstring problem.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. Finally, you mentioned that you would find the fix. When we last spoke, you said you'll find the fix. Have you found it yet?
I think the fix comes in a variety of ways. I think the fix sometimes is a personnel issue. I think the fix sometimes is a strategy issue. I think it's sometimes a formation issue. So, like I say, I think the last game, albeit we didn't come away thinking that we played well, but I think the last game, I think there was a couple of key moments in the game. If we get the key moments in our favour, I think the result becomes a different one. So, and as I say, I think prior to that game we'd probably 3 proper sessions building up to the match. In terms of getting ourselves ready for it. So naturally what happens is when you're setting out any sort of template in terms of how you're going to play, there's layers to be added. We're literally at the first layer at the moment. So yeah, it's a work in progress.
I know I said that was the last question, but I'm hoping you will give me some positives. Nick Powell, no reaction to his game, and Dwight Gale, is he fit enough to be considered?
Yeah, Dwight's trained this week, so he should be okay. And Nick Powell, there's been no adverse effects.